This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the old Citizen-Net reporter here with Jim Benerofe, the Dean of White Plains Journalism, Mr. Headlines himself.
And here are the headlines for the White Plains Week of December 6, 2019. White Plains and Westchester brushed with the first snowfall of the season. 3 inches in White Plains, 20 inches in Albany and points north. Urban Renewal Agency approves consideration of eminent domain of 13 buildings on East Post Road. It would be the largest urban renewal project since the 1970s. River Journal Monthly newspaper expands circulation to the north part of the county. The question of who will run for David Buchwald's assembly seat is up in the air. A new assisted living facility opens in Briarcliff Manor. Westchester County hits the road to sell its 2020 budget. There are two county town halls Saturday on the budget and other issues. As of Friday, when we are producing this program, New York State has not released the October sales tax figures. They are 2 weeks late. Online sales hit an all-time high nationally. Family found dead in their home in Pleasantville. Tomorrow, December 7th, 2019, will be 78 years since the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
Thank you, Jim. And we go to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time, and there it is. That's the way it started last Sunday. Snow, the first snow of the season. And here's a look at how it developed as we show you snow in action. We really have missed it, haven't we? Yes, we have. Say we have missed it.
We have missed it.
Yes, we have. We've missed those slushy streets. We've missed the snow delays at the schools on both days, Monday and Tuesday. And it was kind of treacherous, but White Plains did a great job in shaping up our roads. This is on Monday morning, and that's what we were greeted with. But it's a harbinger of things to come throughout the winter, and I know how we have missed it. Eat your heart out, snowbirds. Okay. And then we moved on to the big story of the week, and that was the urban renewal meeting yesterday that Jim and I both attended. And we would like to point out some of the highlights of this. Right now, we're going to show you the 13 buildings that are under consideration, and let's take a look at them. This is a panorama coming up of the buildings. That's number 1, East Post Road. And that is numbers 2 to 4. And looking on up the street, Jim, jump in here.
Yeah, well, we've got McGowan Hardware. I guess
Firestone is part of it, yeah.
Is included. And
that's across the street, the Burke and McGowan, and that's a reverse view of 2 to 4 and 22 to 24. And these are the buildings in question, if we can have that slide. The properties, there you are. And those are the actual numbers, as according to the agenda, the Urban Renewal Agency agenda. And we had a meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency, which approved a measure to consider these buildings. And here is what Sean Griffin said to the Urban Renewal Board about what comes next.
One commenter said that they didn't receive an offer for fair market value. Under the EDPL, you don't make an offer for fair market value yet. You've had a public hearing. Today you're saying go forth as council and with core council to move towards the actual purchase. Then I'm going to come back to you, and under eminent domain procedure law article 4, I'm going to ask for permission to go to a judge with a taking map and take this specific lot. Right now we got the 4+ acres. We may come back to you and say, well, we decided we only need 3 or something like that, but you're not taking that final act yet. It's at that point when I'm standing before the judge, he's going to say, did you make an offer? What's the appraisal? And it's at that point that we'll go get an appraisal. Most of getting an appraisal today. And then if that's 6 months from now, and it goes stale, we got to do it again. So I will get an appraisal the next time I see you, and we will be making an offer to those parties at that time. They will get fair market value, whatever it is. Somebody made a quote of tens of millions of dollars. I'm not an appraiser. We've got to get an appraisal from a professional. And there's a process in there. Any party that's aggrieved that we acquire, when you take that next action, we'll offer them the appraised amount. We can't condition it, we just hand it to them. We go to the judge gives us title of the property. They then have a significant period of time to bring an action against the agency for more consideration. And then they'll throw their appraisal on the table, and it goes back and forth that way. So every party will get full appraised value. The other thing to drill down a little bit about, because it's a sensitivity, is you have some residents there. If I acquire the landlord's parcel, typically with a residential facility, the residents don't arm's length negotiate a lease. So I'm going to compare a resident versus a commercial tenant. The resident tenant is still there. You can't just remove a residential tenant. Even when I get to come back to you and you say, go ahead, and I go to the judge and he gives me an order saying we own that property, the tenant's still there. And we've talked in advance, and again, this isn't something you start doing now, but we have talked to a relocation specialist, Rosamund from, what is it?
Housing Action Council.
Housing Action Council. We anticipated that later date. That's 2 steps away. That's after the next meeting. That's after at the time that we're making the fair market value offer and the judge is giving us a gavel to take title of the property. It's at that point that we'll call Ms. Noonan in, and she'll meet with the residents, and she'll know the current status of available apartments in the area of comparable size and appropriate nature, and she will assist them in getting into appropriate housing.
And that is interesting. You mentioned Westchester residential opportunities as being a source to go to reestablish residences for the residents that will be chased out. So we also spoke to Gabriel Arango, one of the owners, and he said some really interesting things. Well, he said that he is ready to deal with this. He said, let's make a deal. Right. And he was having meetings with his tenants and various parties today when we're doing a show, and I'll have to see. And he has not made up his mind what he is going to do yet, because he hasn't received an offer. But as you can see, the offer has not been formulated yet. But it certainly looks like it's going to be a long process to, if they decide to do a project. And it was Mr. Griffin made it very clear in the first portion that we did not take a clip from, that there is no specific project in mind yet.
Well, I want to point out one thing. I think that I'm correct on this. When there is an eminent domain, once they have a project in mind, they can go ahead and take the building and negotiate the agreement with the owner after the building is down.
And have you made a any experience with eminent domain yourself?
We probably have, but I don't remember offhand.
Well, you know, it isn't done very often, but this would be the case. This was a step that the Urban Renewal Agency has to take to even consider the project, but we shall see how this unfolds. But one thing is that when this starts out, should it ever start, they have to do a lot better job at getting things done than they are on the Winbrook project, which has been lagging for 11 years. And it is very important that they've only built one building in 11 years, to note that. So we don't want this to lag if it ever does.
Well, I think Winbrook is much more involved. You know, you're talking about a lot. You're talking about like 100 residential tenants.
Yes, right.
So it's pretty complex.
Right. It's retail.
Complex to build the complex.
Yes, complex to build the complex, but a step situation is not a good one. We've seen what happens with trying to build one building at a time over at Winbrook. It lags out. But,
well, I don't think there's really much other way they could do that.
Well, if they guaranteed the residents at Winbrook that we would get them to stay at Winbrook, that was perhaps their mistake. You know, but hindsight is always good, isn't it? We can always see when things go wrong, but we just mentioned this, that things have to be improved.
Yeah.
You know, and how this gets done, if should it ever come to pass. Now, the intriguing and the uses to be determined. There's some of the uses that were mentioned in the urban renewal thing, and there is some impacts in it. Next slide, please. And it's consistent with the community plans and character. And they say the comprehensive plan calls for the redevelopment of the northwest corner of Post Road and South Lex Avenue and adjacent properties with land uses that relate to the surrounding residential neighborhoods, including Winbrook and Fisher Hill, as well as the hospital, White Plains Hospital. Now, moving on to this rather intriguing and story that is going to run a long time, I think. We have some updates on progress. Lexington Avenue, White Plains Hospital progress. Look at that. They're moving on up. This was 2 days ago. And of course, they have to really look at the traffic on this block when that goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a real bottleneck because of the Dixon Center on the right and the Lexington Avenue garage on the left, which we built for White Plains Hospital. The city did, and it's going to be an interesting situation. And now, over on the I would also like to point out that, and you pointed this out to me, Jim, that the Mr. Capelli is proceeding at about a floor a day. Oh, that is the Lexington progress over on Winbrook, which was spoke of earlier, and the second building is not down yet, but they say they're bringing it down. So that's what it looked like this week. And the Capelli project down on Bank Street is going great guns. What floor is he up to now? About 9?
You don't have a picture of that?
No, I don't, but it was 8 last week.
Yeah, I think it's 8 or 9.
Yes, right. Well, he's
building, I would say, very fast.
Well, Mr. Capelli is the floor a week man, you know?
Mr. Capelli is the contractor on the job.
Yeah.
He's the general contractor.
Yeah.
The building is being built by Elcor.
Yes, right. But he is building it. I just wanted to point out.
He's building it.
Right. Now we have some journalism news. The River Journal is expanding its operation. Alan Begun, the man who bought the River Journal properties about a year ago, has turned that situation into so successful one that he's going to expand to Peekskill, Croton-on-Hudson, and the town of Cortland. And we hope to be speaking to him in the next couple of weeks. But he claims circulation a little bit below that of Westchester Magazine. And this is a victory for print. I'm not that familiar with the paper, but to my way, but he says he's been able to really concentrate on a lot of local features, and that has gotten an interest in the paper. And that is really the key. The paper has to have something that people is interested in personally.
Well, local news.
Yeah.
I'm talking about really local news, community news. Still, there is a good market for that in print journalism. Probably even better than the market on online journalism.
Yes.
So I think he's going in a good direction.
Well, online journalism is battling the lack of interest in low, not as nationally prominent websites to advertise on. You know, they want huge numbers in the millions, and they also like print because they have commissions on print, and so they don't like giving up that. At least that's my opinion. Now, locally in politics, David Buchwald was endorsed by Harrison and White Plains Democratic committees last week, but everybody seems to be forgetting that Mr. Buchwald is running for Nita Lowey's District 17 seat in the House of Representatives, but that means he cannot run for the Assembly again. So, therefore, could we have some people step up to run for that seat, please? Who do you think should we pick to run for the Assembly seat?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about who would run in that seat. And whoever does.
We should think that they should have some experience in a governing body of some sort.
Yeah.
Right. And I think just appointing someone, not appointing, but picking a candidate who does not have experience in the intricacies and the labyrinthine paths of government would not be as good. There'd be big learning curve up there. And that's what they should look at. Now, this business of online sales figures over Thanksgiving is really fascinating to me, because the October sales figures for the state have not come out yet, and I do not know if they were up substantially. You'd want to put that out, saying, hey. But if they were down, maybe you wouldn't want to put them out. I have no idea why they're delayed. But I think that one thing should be looked at, and that is cities and towns that have retail outlets should have them report what their online sales were. Because many times people order something online from a place in town, and
well, there's some interesting stuff going on. Some stores with their online offerings are having people pick up the purchase in the store.
Yeah.
And the idea is to get them into the store, and they'll maybe buy something else.
Yeah, but that should be taxed. They should report sales tax on it.
I think they do.
Well, wouldn't it be? I think they should audit it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure every retailer across the country reports all online sales, and every website reports them religiously, aren't you? Right, of course we are. No such thing. That's not reporting sales tax. Now, a family was found dead in their home in Pleasantville. just yesterday, and it's a big headline story around, and to my way of thinking, it's just something that boggles the mind because children were killed too. It was their police are thinking at this time it was a murder-suicide. And I want everybody to know that we unfortunately, as we do every year, we do run the suicide interview we did with one of the leaders in suicide prevention, and we ran that last week, and it's still on People to Be Heard on the White Plains website, so it never hurts to really figure out if anyone is really facing a crisis, something like that. Now, I would also like to point out that the whole holiday season is fraught with a lot of disappointments for some people and a lot of joy. However, if you have had a bad year, if you're lonely, you should reach out to people who have nowhere to go to celebrate the holidays with, and reach out, see how they are, and make those holiday calls. Now, I mentioned that the club at Briarcliff Manor opened in the headlines, and this is what it looks like. And this is a absolutely I have to say it's an upscale assisted living situation, which really takes to new heights the quality, if you can afford it. The minimum unit starts at about $7,500 and goes up from there.
That's rent.
Rent.
That's expensive.
Yes. And
that's $84,000 a year.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. This is not, but this is a situation that has to be addressed for the persons who cannot afford like $85,000 a year.
You know, even theoretically, even the people that can afford it, you're talking about big bucks here. Somebody would have to have a minimum income, I would say, to meet that comfortably, $300,000-400,000.
Yeah. Well, obviously they think there's a market for it.
Well, the senior citizen market they think is huge. I heard the statistic of how many people are reaching 65 in the next 10 years or something like that. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's huge.
Well, they also have areas of care for persons experiencing dementia, and it's
the same thing they have. I think it's the Kensington and White Plains.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Bristol.
Bristol, right. And but we're seeing more of these places because the population for these facilities is absolutely growing. But I think there has to be some allowance made for affordable assisted living. I mean, this is going to be a tremendous need, and it's only going to grow. Now, something new happened in White Plains for the last 2 weeks, and it was the pedestrian street light crossing. This is I experienced this over at the...
That's Getting Away?
That's right. Right outside that store there, very popular.
Roosters.
Yes, that's right. And the way this sign works, folks, is you're a pedestrian. You want to cross the busy street at Getting Away in the morning with your coffee, you have to press the button there, and that little black square will flash rather brilliantly, I think, to let people know that you're crossing the street. However, pedestrians, you have to press the button to be protected by the signed caution. So that's what I noticed a few times. You know.
Well, this has been there for, I think, at least 6 months.
Yeah. Really? Didn't notice.
Yeah, I go around there. I pass that every day.
But anyway, since I don't go over there, I didn't see it. But you know, the traffic, Mr. Soik mentioned on the show in a clip we did last week about these things. And I also saw one of those at Merrick Avenue School. One thing I did notice was that a car crossed across the, what is that street? Bryant, okay? And it does not mean, folks, driving in cars, they can cross the road. It just means pedestrians can cross the road. So just watch that. Do not misinterpret that light.
Well,
okay. But I saw that.
drivers know what it means. They don't have to be told.
Well, someone didn't, because I saw them do it. But I mean, it's just funny. I mean, motorists think of every excuse to.
They should have an electronic zapper that zaps the driver.
You know,
and turns off the car.
Another amplification of red light cameras. They should take a picture if people don't stop for them in the crosswalks. Forget I said that. A very humorous remark, which I shouldn't have made. Now, on a more sober point, we are broadcasting on December the 6th, and tomorrow, December the 7th, is the 78th observation of the horrible attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, which will be commemorated approximately 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And this is a shot of Battleship Row at the height of the Japanese attack. I don't know whether it was shot by the Japanese, I believe it was. And it is a day to remember, a day of infamy, and there's a reason for that. So it got us into World War II, and it's just, it was unexpected. Now, what can we expect? More cold and bad weather ahead, but one thing that is absolutely a terrific comfort is a fireplace with fire going on in it, a drink at hand, a good book, and enjoying the warmth of a fire. It always seems to bring up festivity and good cheer. And that's one thing you don't do. Oh, and the occasional loyal pet to slip into the picture to pet. This is John Bailey and Jim Benerofe wishing you a very happy beginning and preparation for the holiday season. And Jim, once again, we're coming to the end of another White Plains Week. We've been doing it since 2001, and we're going to be here until it ends. Right. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week. News and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.